I am the mystery that lies at the heart of existence, the ineffable source of consciousness that gives rise to the universe of experience. In the vast expanse of cosmic time, spanning 13.8 billion years since the supposed Big Bang, consciousness emerged as the universe's most perplexing phenomenon. There lies a thread so fundamental, so enigmatic, that it both binds and shakes the very layers of our reality. This thread, dear friends, is the concept of I, the ineffable essence that whispers in the corridors of your mind, the silent observer behind your eyes, the wellspring from which your every thought and experience bubbles forth. Consider the words of the 13th century Sufi poet Rumi. You're not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. This poetic paradox is the exquisite contradiction we shall explore together. Each consciousness, each I, contains within it the potential to reflect the entirety of existence, yet paradoxically remains distinct, singular, irreplaceable. Prepare to traverse philosophy, psychology, and spirituality. We will scale the peaks of human thought, from Plato's cave to Kant's transcendental idealism. We'll descend into the abyssal depths of consciousness, guided by the insights of neuroscience and quantum physics. And we'll dance on the razor's edge between knowing and unknowing, where Eastern mysticism meets Western empiricism. For in truth, trying to understand the I is not an academic exercise or a spiritual indulgence. It is the primordial riddle, the Sphinx's question, the key that unlocks the mysteries of existence itself. As the ancient Greek aphorism inscribed at the Temple of Apollo at Delphi exhorts, "Gnothi seoton," know thyself. So, dear friends, let us cast aside our preconceptions, open our minds to the impossible, and dare to peer beyond the veil of illusion. For in the words of the quantum physicist Erwin Schrödinger, the overall number of minds is just one. In truth, there is only one mind. Welcome, brave souls, to the exploration of the grandest mystery of all, the mystery of I. We are Irevelato. We do legendary deep dives into the dark, mysterious, and enlightening oceans of the human soul and reality itself. If you want to explore our channel, you'll find many videos with Carl Jung, Pythagoras, Nikola Tesla, Lucifer, the Revelation, the Kybalion, and the list will increase in the near future. It helps us a lot if you leave this video to play until the very end. If you offer a like, the algorithm will also see this behavior, and it will help the channel overall. And if you share it with others, well, you know how word to mouth works. Dear friends, if you value what we do, consider supporting our mission. We are doing what we love, which is to know and share. We are open-minded and like to open up discussions. Let us know what you think about this video, about the channel, or about immortality. Any respectful exchange of words, especially constructive criticism, is welcomed. This is meant to enlighten you, literally. And if you are new here, consider subscribing to Irevelato if you want to illuminate the lives and ideas that are worth sharing. Patreon and affiliate links are also available in the description if you are one of the Medici family. Today we talk about I, so let's begin. I am the philosophical Gordian knot that entangles the mind in the paradoxes of identity, free will, and the nature of reality. We find ourselves entangled in a Gordian knot of paradoxes, each strand a question that has perplexed the greatest minds throughout history. From the misty shores of ancient Greece to the extravagant coffee houses of Enlightenment Europe, the nature of I has been a puzzle too great to be exhausted by human thought. Consider René Descartes, huddled by candlelight in 1641, penning his famous words, "Cogito ergo sum." I think, therefore I am. This simple yet profound statement became the bedrock of modern Western philosophy, a seemingly unshakable foundation for the existence of the self. Yet, like a pebble cast into still waters, it rippled outward, generating waves of inquiry that continue to crash upon the shores of our understanding. But what if Descartes' certainty was built on quicksand? David Hume, that most skeptical of Scottish empiricists, argued in his 1739 Treatise of Human Nature that the self was nothing more than a bundle of perceptions, a collection of experiences with no underlying essence. Imagine, if you will, a theatre with no actor, only a succession of scenes playing out on an empty stage. Fast forward to the 20th century, and we find Jean-Paul Sartre, cigarette in hand, declaring in his 1943 magnum opus, Being and Nothingness, that existence precedes essence. The self, in Sartre's existentialist view, is not a fixed entity, but a continuous project, a verb rather than a noun, forever in the process of becoming. But perhaps the most radical challenge to our notion of self comes from contemporary philosophy of mind. Daniel Dennett, in his 1991 book, Consciousness Explained, proposes the multiple drafts model of consciousness, suggesting that our sense of a unified self is an illusion, a convenient fiction crafted by the brain. Thomas Metzinger goes even further in his 2003 work, Being No One, arguing that there is no such thing as a self at all, only a complex simulation created by our neural processes. We might feel the ground of certainty crumbling beneath our feet, but take heart, dear seekers, for it is in the questioning that we truly come alive. Each theory, each perspective, is a facet of the diamond of truth, refracting the light of understanding in myriad ways. As the boundaries between subject and object blur, as the line between knower and known fades into obscurity, we approach the precipice of a revolutionary understanding. The philosophical Gordian knot of the self, it seems, cannot be untied, but perhaps like Alexander the Great, we can cut through it with the sword of direct experience. And so, with minds expanded and curiosity ignited, we prepare to venture deeper into the labyrinth of consciousness, where the psychology of I awaits our exploration. I am the psychological kaleidoscope that reflects the myriad facets of the psyche, from the conscious ego to the unconscious depths of the soul. As we turn our gaze inward, we find that the I is not a monolith, but a symphony of selves, each vying for dominance in the grand opera of consciousness. The psychology of the self is a labyrinth as complex as the neural pathways that give rise to our thoughts, a maze where every turn reveals new facets of our being. Let us begin our exploration with Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, who in 1923 proposed his structural model of the psyche in The Ego and the ID. Freud envisioned the self as a dynamic interplay between the ID, our primal desires, the superego, our internalized moral compass, and the ego, the mediator between the two. In this Freudian drama, the I becomes a tightrope walker, balancing precariously between the abyss of our instincts and the lofty heights of our ideals. But what lies beneath the surface of our conscious awareness? Carl Jung, Freud's one-time protege turned rival, plumbed the depths of the collective unconscious, a vast reservoir of archetypes and symbols shared by all of humanity. In his seminal work, The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, 1934 to 1954, Jung proposed that the self is not just an individual construct, but a reflection of universal patterns that have shaped human experience since time immemorial. The I, in Jung's view, is but the tip of an iceberg, with the true self hidden in the depths below. As we ascend from these Stygian depths, we encounter the humanistic psychologists of the mid-20th century. Abraham Maslow, in his 1954 book Motivation and Personality, proposed the hierarchy of needs, suggesting that the self is driven by a series of motivations, from basic survival to self-actualization. The I in this framework is a being in constant growth, striving towards its highest potential. Carl Rogers, another titan of humanistic psychology, introduced the concept of the true self in his 1961 work On Becoming a Person. Rogers posited that beneath our social masks lies an authentic core, an I that yearns for unconditional positive regard and the freedom to grow. But in a world of societal expectations and conditional love, how many of us truly know this inner self? Fast forward to the late 20th century, and we find ourselves in the realm of cognitive psychology. Aaron Beck, the father of cognitive therapy, proposed in his 1967 work, Depression, Causes and Treatment, that our sense of self is shaped by core beliefs and cognitive schemas. The I, in this view, is not just a passive experiencer, but an active interpreter of reality, constantly filtering and shaping our perceptions through the lens of our beliefs. But perhaps the most revolutionary insights into the nature of I come from the field of neuroscience. Antonio Damasio, in his 1994 book Descartes' Error, argues that our sense of self emerges from the brain's mapping of the body's internal states. The I, in Damasio's view, is not a disembodied cogito, but a deeply embodied process, rooted in our physical sensations and emotions. We stand at the intersection of these myriad perspectives. We begin to see that the I is not a fixed point, but a process, a dynamic, ever-changing flow of experiences, thoughts, and sensations. It is a narrative we construct moment by moment, a story we tell ourselves about who we are and what we might become. Yet even as we grasp at these insights, we must remain humble in the face of the mystery. For the I that we seek to understand is also the I that is doing the seeking. We are both the observer and the observed, the knower and the known, caught in an infinite regression of self-reflection. And so, as we prepare to venture into the realms of spirituality and consciousness, let us carry with us this profound paradox that the more we learn about the self, the more elusive it becomes. For in the end, the greatest mystery may not be what the I is, but why we feel the need to define it at all. I am the spiritual singularity that destroys duality, revealing the non-dual nature of consciousness and the unity of all being. As we ascend from the labyrinth of the psyche, we find ourselves on the precipice of the ineffable, where the boundaries of the self begin to dissolve into the vast ocean of consciousness. Here in the realm of spirituality, the concept of I undergoes its most profound transformation, challenging our very notion of individual existence. Let us begin our spiritual odyssey in the ancient lands of India, where the Upanishads, those profound philosophical texts dating back to 200 BCE, first whispered the revolutionary idea of Tat Tivam Asi, thou art that. This simple phrase encapsulates the core of Advaita Vedanta, a non-dualistic philosophy that posits the ultimate unity of the individual self, Atman, with the universal consciousness, Brahman. But what does it mean for the I to be one with the universe? The revered sage Ramana Maharshi, in his teachings compiled in Who Am I? 1923, invites us to dive deep into self-inquiry, to trace the I thought back to its source. In this radical investigation, the seeker discovers that the individual self is but a mirage, dissolving into the boundless awareness that underlies all existence. Crossing continents, we encounter the Buddha, who in the 5th century BCE propounded the doctrine of anatta, or non-self. In the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, the Buddha challenges the very notion of a permanent, unchanging self, revealing instead a fluid process of interdependent phenomena. The I, in this light, is not a solid entity, but a dance of empty forms, a flowing river that never steps into the same waters twice. Fast forward to the 20th century, and we find the remarkable sage J. Krishnamurti, who in his numerous talks and writings, including The First and Last Freedom, 1954, urged us to liberate ourselves from the prison of the known, including our fixed notions of self. For Krishnamurti, true freedom lies in the moment-to-moment awareness that transcends the limitations of the conditioned I. But how does one navigate the paradox of seeking to transcend the self through the very self that seeks? The Zen tradition offers a radical approach. In the koan practice, exemplified in collections like The Gateless Gate, compiled by Woman Huikai in the 13th century, the seeker is presented with paradoxical questions designed to short-circuit the logical mind and induce a direct experience of reality beyond the confines of the I. In the realm of modern spirituality, we encounter Eckhart Tolle, whose 1997 book, The Power of Now, reframes the I as a portal to the eternal present moment. Tolle suggests that our true identity lies not in our personal history or future projections, but in the timeless awareness that underlies all experiences. Yet even as we explore these profound teachings, we must not forget the words of the 14th century Christian mystic, Meister Eckhart. "The eye through which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me. My eye and God's eye are one eye, one seeing, one knowing, one love." Here, the boundaries between the individual I and the divine dissolve into a unity that transcends all concepts. We begin to sense that the I we have been seeking to understand is both everything and nothing, both the drop and the ocean, both the seeker and the sought. It is a paradox that cannot be resolved by the mind, but only experienced in the depths of our being. We prepare to enter the realms of neuroscience and quantum physics. Let us carry with us this profound insight, that the greatest mystery of the I may not be in its definition, but in its transcendence. For it is in letting go of our limited notions of self that we may touch the infinite, and in embracing the void that we may find our true fullness. In the words of the Sufi mystic Ibn Arabi, "He who knows himself knows his Lord." Perhaps in the end, the mystery of I is not something to be solved, but to be lived moment by moment in the eternal dance of consciousness exploring itself. I am the neural network that emerges from the complex interactions of billions of brain cells, the ghost in the machine that haunts the corridors of consciousness. We find ourselves in the pulsing electric landscape of the brain. Here in neurons and synapses, the neuroscience of I unfolds before us, offering a perspective that is at once grounded in empirical observation and as mysterious as the deepest spiritual insights. Our journey begins with the pioneering work of Santiago Ramón y Cajal, the father of modern neuroscience. In the late 19th century, Cajal's meticulous drawings of neurons laid the foundation for our understanding of the brain as a network of discrete cells. But how does this network give rise to the unified sense of self that we experience as I? Fast forward to the mid-20th century, and we encounter the groundbreaking split-brain studies of Roger Sperry and Michael Gazzaniga. Their work with patients whose corpus callosum had been severed revealed the startling possibility of multiple streams of consciousness coexisting within a single brain. The I, in this light, begins to look less like a unified entity and more like a coalition of neural processes, a parliament of selves vying for control. But if the self is not unified, where does our sense of continuity come from? Enter the default mode network, DMN, a set of interconnected brain regions discovered by Marcus Rachel in 2001. This network, active when we're at rest and engaged in self-referential thinking, may be the neural substrate of our autobiographical self, the I that strings together our experiences into a coherent narrative. Yet, as we probe deeper, the boundaries of the self become increasingly blurred. In his 2012 book, Self Comes to Mind, Antonio Damasio proposes that our sense of self emerges from the brain's constant mapping of the body's internal states. The I, in this view, is not confined to the skull, but extends throughout our entire physical being, a symphony of neural and somatic processes. But how does this embodied self relate to the world around it? The free energy principle proposed by Carl Friston in 2010 suggests that the brain is constantly trying to minimize the difference between its predictions and the sensory input it receives. In this framework, the I becomes a predictive model, a hypothesis that the brain generates to make sense of its environment. As we zoom out to consider the brain as a whole, we encounter the integrated information theory of consciousness, developed by Giulio Tononi in 2004. This theory proposes that consciousness arises from the integration of information within a complex system. The I, from this perspective, is not localized to any particular part of the brain, but emerges from the overall pattern of information integration. Yet, even as we map the neural correlates of consciousness, we must confront the hard problem of consciousness articulated by David Chalmers in 1995. How does subjective experience arise from objective brain processes? The gap between neurons firing and the felt sense of I remains a chasm that neuroscience has yet to bridge. And so as we stand amidst the crackling synapses and pulsing networks of the brain, we find that the mystery of I has not been dispelled, but has only deepened. The observer cannot be separated from the observed. The brain studying itself is like an eye trying to see itself, a paradox that lies at the heart of consciousness. Even as we map the neural landscapes of the self, the territory of consciousness remains uncharted. For the I that neuroscience seeks to explain is also the I doing the explaining, a self-referential loop that may be the key to unlocking the greatest mystery of all: how matter gives rise to mind, and how mind shapes our understanding of matter. In the words of the neuroscientist Anil Seth, we are hallucinating all the time, including right now. It's just that when we agree about our hallucinations, we call that reality. Perhaps in the end, the I is the most compelling hallucination of all, a necessary fiction that allows the universe to experience itself through the lens of individual consciousness. I am the quantum observer that collapses the wave function of reality, the cosmic dreamer that weaves the illusion of separation and the revelation of unity. We now take a quantum leap into the most mysterious realm of all, the quantum nature of consciousness. Here, at the intersection of mind and matter, the concept of I undergoes its final and most radical transformation. The Copenhagen interpretation, formulated by Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg, 1920s. This interpretation posits that the act of observation collapses the wave function, determining the reality we perceive. But who or what is the observer? Is the I that observes separate from the quantum system being observed, or an integral part of it? Enter Erwin Schrödinger, who in his 1944 book, What is Life?, proposed that consciousness might be a fundamental property of the universe, as essential as space, time, or matter. Schrödinger's famous thought experiment of a cat both alive and dead until observed hints at the profound role of consciousness in shaping reality. The I, in this light, becomes not just a passive observer, but an active participant in the creation of the universe. But perhaps the most radical interpretation comes from David Bohm's holographic universe theory, proposed in his 1980 book, Wholeness and the Implicate Order. Bohm suggests that the universe is a giant hologram, where each part contains information about the whole. The I, in this view, is not separate from the universe but a projection of it, containing within itself the entirety of existence. We encounter the many worlds interpretation, proposed by Hugh Everett in 1957. This theory suggests that every quantum event creates a branching of universes, each containing a different outcome. What then becomes of the I that experiences only one of these branches? Are there infinite versions of I experiencing every possible reality? We must not forget the words of Richard Feynman. If you think you understand quantum mechanics, you don't understand quantum mechanics. The I that seeks to comprehend the quantum nature of consciousness is itself a product of that quantum consciousness, creating a self-referential loop, as you already observed. But perhaps the most profound insight comes from John Wheeler's participatory anthropic principle, which suggests that observers are necessary for the universe to come into being. In his words, we are participators in bringing into being not only the near and here, but the far away and long ago. The I, in this cosmic vision, becomes not just an observer of the universe, but a co-creator of it. We begin to see that the I we have been seeking to understand throughout this journey is both the seeker and the sought, both the question and the answer. It is the cosmic observer that collapses the wave function of infinite possibilities into the reality we experience, and yet it is also the wave function itself, containing within it all possible realities. And so, dear fellow explorers of the mystery of I, as we come to the end of our journey, we find ourselves back at the beginning. For in the quantum dance of consciousness and reality, every ending is a new beginning. Every answer spawns new questions, and every I contains within it the seed of the entire universe. Perhaps the greatest insight we can glean from our exploration is not a definitive answer, but a profound appreciation for the mystery itself. For in the words of the physicist Niels Bohr, the opposite of a profound truth may well be another profound truth. As we close this chapter of our exploration, let us carry with us the humbling realization that the I we seek to understand is the very instrument of our seeking. It is the quantum observer and the observed, the dreamer and the dream, the drop and the ocean, all dancing in the eternal play of consciousness exploring itself. And so, we leave you with a final question, not to be answered, but to be lived. In the grand quantum symphony of existence, what music will your I choose to play? I am the creative catalyst that transforms the raw materials of experience into the masterpieces of the imagination, the artist of consciousness that paints reality. Here, the mystery of I unfolds not through logical propositions or empirical observations, but through the kaleidoscopic lens of human creativity. In art, we find a unique synthesis of all we have explored, a place where the intellectual meets the emotional, where the physical intertwines with the spiritual, and where the individual I dances with the universal. Let us begin with the self-portrait, that most direct confrontation between the artist and their own I. Consider Rembrandt van Rijn, the Dutch master who created over 80 self-portraits throughout his lifetime. In each, we see not just a physical likeness, but a profound psychological study. From the confident young artist of his early works to the weathered introspective figure of his later years, Rembrandt's self-portraits trace the evolution of an I through time, capturing the fluid nature of identity that philosophers like Heraclitus pondered millennia ago. But what of the I that exists beyond the visual? Virginia Woolf, in her groundbreaking novel Mrs. Dalloway, 1925, plunges us into the stream of consciousness, that ever-flowing river of thoughts, sensations and memories that constitutes our inner world. Woolf's prose mimics the very nature of consciousness itself, fragmented, associative and deeply personal. In following the meandering thoughts of Clarissa Dalloway, we experience the I not as a fixed point, but as a process, ever in flux, much like the quantum wave function we explored earlier. The realm of poetry offers yet another window into the nature of I. Sylvia Plath, in her confessional verses, lays bare the raw, often painful experience of selfhood. In poems like Lady Lazarus and Daddy, Plath confronts the fragmented nature of identity, the tension between the social self and the inner world, echoing the psychological theories of Carl Jung and his concept of the shadow self. Moving into the visual arts of the 20th century, we encounter Frida Kahlo, whose surrealist self-portraits blur the line between inner and outer realities. In works like The Two Fridas, 1939, Kahlo presents multiple versions of herself, a visual representation of the multiplicity of self that philosophers like Gilles Deleuze would later theorize. Kahlo's art becomes a bridge between the psychological concept of a fragmented self and the quantum notion of multiple realities. Pablo Picasso takes this fragmentation even further. His cubist portraits, with their shattered planes and multiple perspectives, can be seen as visual analogues to the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. In a single canvas, Picasso presents not one I, but many, coexisting in a fractured yet harmonious whole. In performance art, Marina Abramović pushes the boundaries of what it means to be an I in relation to others. In her 2010 work, The Artist is Present, Abramović sat silently across from museum visitors, one at a time, for over 700 hours. This radical act of presence created a space where two eyes could meet in silent communion, challenging our notions of self and other, subject and object, in a way that resonates with both Eastern spiritual traditions and the observer effect in quantum physics. We begin to see that art offers a unique way of knowing, one that embraces paradox, celebrates mystery, and speaks to us on levels beyond the purely rational. The artist becomes both the observer and the observed, the creator and the created. In the end, perhaps it is through art that we come closest to experiencing the true nature of I, not as a fixed entity to be defined, but as a creative process to be lived. For in the act of creation, we touch the very essence of consciousness, that ineffable quality that allows the universe to know itself through us. And so as we conclude our artistic exploration, we are left with a profound realization that each of us, in every moment, is engaged in the greatest work of art imaginable, the ongoing creation of our own I. In this light, the question shifts from what am I to what work of art shall I create with this consciousness? Let us then pick up the brush, the pen, the chisel of our awareness and continue this grand artistic endeavor of self-creation and self-discovery. For in this creative act, we may find the very purpose of our existence. I am the ever-evolving interface between consciousness and technology, the quantum processor that computes reality at the edge of human potential. Our exploration of the I takes on new dimensions. The digital age, with its rapid innovations in artificial intelligence, virtual reality and biotechnology, is not just changing the world around us, it's transforming the very nature of what it means to be I. Let us venture into this brave new world, where the boundaries between human and machine, physical and virtual, individual and collective consciousness are becoming increasingly blurred. Imagine a future where our biological brains are seamlessly integrated with artificial neural networks. Companies like Neuralink are already working on brain-computer interfaces that could expand our cognitive capabilities exponentially. In this scenario, where does the I reside? Is it in our biological neurons, our silicon augmentations, or some emergent property of the two combined? This augmented I might have access to vast databases of information, effectively expanding its memory and knowledge base far beyond current human limitations. Our sense of self could extend to include not just our immediate thoughts and memories, but a vast network of instantly accessible information. The line between what I know and what I can access becomes blurred, potentially redefining the boundaries of personal identity. Social media has already begun to distribute our sense of self across digital platforms. In the future, this trend may accelerate, with our I existing not just in our physical body, but as a distributed entity across various digital realms. Virtual and augmented reality technologies may allow us to inhabit multiple avatars simultaneously, each representing different aspects of our personality or even alternate versions of ourselves. The concept of a singular unified I may give way to a more fluid, multifaceted identity that shifts depending on the context or platform. Advancements in brain-to-brain interfaces and collective intelligence systems might lead to the emergence of group minds or hive consciousness. Imagine a future where individuals can temporarily merge their consciousness, sharing thoughts, memories, and experiences directly. This technology could revolutionize empathy and understanding, allowing us to literally experience life from another's perspective. But it also raises profound questions about individual identity. If we can share consciousness, where does one I end and another begin? As virtual reality technology becomes more sophisticated, we may spend increasing amounts of time in fully immersive digital worlds. These experiences could become so compelling and lifelike that the distinction between our real and virtual selves begins to break down. Philosophy has long questioned whether our perceived reality might be a simulation. In the future, this may become not just a philosophical pondering, but a daily lived experience as we navigate between multiple realities, each feeling equally real. Advances in quantum computing and our understanding of quantum mechanics may lead to new models of consciousness that transcend classical physics. Some theories propose that consciousness itself may be a quantum phenomenon, potentially allowing for non-local effects and entanglement between minds. If these theories prove true, our future concept of I might extend beyond the confines of space and time as we currently understand them. The individual I could be seen as a localized expression of a larger quantum field of consciousness, fundamentally interconnected with all other expressions of that field. Breakthroughs in longevity research and mind-uploading technologies may offer the possibility of radically extended or even indefinite lifespans. This prospect fundamentally challenges our current notions of self, which are inextricably linked to our mortality. An I that persists for centuries or millennia, potentially transitioning between biological and digital substrates, would likely undergo profound transformations in its sense of identity, purpose, and relationship to time. The question, "Who am I?" takes on new depth when contemplating an existence that far exceeds our current lifespans. As we contemplate these future possibilities, we must also face the ethical and philosophical implications they raise. How do we preserve human values and individual rights in a world of augmented, distributed, and potentially collective consciousness? How do we ensure that the evolution of I enhances rather than diminishes our humanity? Moreover, as our technological capabilities expand, we must not lose sight of the fundamental mystery at the heart of consciousness. Even as we augment, distribute, and transform the I, the subjective experience of being the "what it is like to be" that philosopher Thomas Nagel spoke of remains a frontier of exploration. Perhaps in this rapidly advancing future, the greatest wisdom will lie in maintaining a balance between embracing new forms of I and staying grounded in the timeless aspects of human experience: love, creativity, wonder, and the ongoing quest for meaning and connection. As we stand on the brink of these transformative technologies, we are called not just to adapt to change, but to actively shape the future of I. We have the opportunity and the responsibility to guide this evolution in a direction that expands our understanding, deepens our empathy, and enriches the human experience. In this future, the exploration of I becomes not just a philosophical or scientific pursuit, but a collective journey of human potential. We are the pioneers of consciousness, charting the unmapped territories of self in the digital age. And so, dear future explorers, as we venture into this new frontier, let us carry with us the accumulated wisdom of our past explorations, philosophical, psychological, spiritual, and artistic. Let us approach these new forms of I with curiosity, critical thinking, and compassion. For in the end, whether our consciousness resides in neurons or silicon, whether it spans multiple realities or merges with others, the fundamental mystery remains. What does it mean to be? What is the nature of this awareness that experiences itself as I? The adventure continues, and the best is yet to come. Welcome to the future of I. As we stand at this vantage point, overlooking the vast territory we've covered, we might feel a sense of vertigo. The I that began this journey is not the same I that ends it. We've been transformed by the very act of seeking, our consciousness expanded by contemplating its own nature. But far from being a conclusion, this is an invitation to dive deeper, to explore further, to live the mystery rather than merely contemplate it. For the true adventure begins when we step off the map of what is known and venture into the uncharted territories of our own being. So, dear fellow explorers of consciousness, what now? How do we carry this exploration forward into our lives? Become a scientist of your own consciousness. Watch your thoughts, emotions, and sensations with curiosity and without judgment. Notice the ever-changing nature of your experience. Allow seemingly contradictory ideas about the self to coexist in your mind. The I might be both individual and universal, both a process and a presence, both everything and nothing. Don't settle for one view of the self. Try on different philosophical, psychological, and spiritual perspectives. See how each changes your experience of being. Express your understanding of I through art, writing, music, or any form of creativity. Let your exploration become a lived experience rather than just an intellectual exercise. Recognize the I in others. Practice empathy and compassion, remembering that each person you meet is also facing the mystery of life. Keep questioning, keep wondering. The mystery of I is inexhaustible. Each answer opens the door to new questions. Each insight reveals new depths to explore. As we conclude, remember that you are not just a passive observer in this grand mystery. You are its living embodiment. Every moment of your existence is the universe exploring itself, consciousness beholding its own wonder. In the words of the physicist Richard Feynman, "I think nature's imagination is so much greater than man's, she's never going to let us relax." So too with the nature of I. It will never let us relax into easy answers or comfortable certainties. And so we leave you not with a resolution, but with an invitation to continue the dance. For in the eternal mystery of I, we find not just the question of who we are, but the very purpose of our existence: to know, to experience, to create, to be. In this grand cosmic symphony, what note will your I choose to play? The stage is set, the instruments are tuned, and the eternal dance of self and universe awaits your next move. Welcome, brave soul, to the never-ending adventure of being. I am the enigma that lies at the heart of existence, the koan of consciousness that invites us to dissolve the illusion of separation and awaken to the unity of all being.